As far as India's Northeast is concerned, Anil, we have had a focus on Northeast at regular intervals, be it yearly, 5 years, annually. But what I think, and also about the terminologies changing from look east to act east to east.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Capital Calculus. I am your host Anil Padmanabhan. For decades, the northeast of India has remained an outpost and has a history of eminently forgettable promises. Not any longer. We are witnessing an unprecedented resolve to transform the region and enable again unprecedented access. For instance, last week, the Bharat Mandapam in Delhi hosted a 2-day Rising Northeast Summit. Coincidentally, just weeks after Bangladesh threatened to choke the so called chicken's egg and thereby cut off India's access to the Northeast region. If anything, this just deepened India's resolve to mainstream the Northeast and improve access to the region. The Prime Minister Narendra Modi himself set the tone in his opening address at the summit when he dubbed the East as an acronym for Empower, Act, Strengthen and Transform. The big question is whether reality is matching the rhetoric. To answer this and more, I spoke to Soumya Bhowmick. He's an economic policy researcher who has deeply invested in researching and understanding the Northeast region. I began by asking Soumya whether India had finally begun to walk the talk on mainstreaming the Northeast.
As far as India's Northeast is concerned, Anil, we have had a focus on Northeast at regular intervals, be it yearly, 5 years, annually. But what I think, and also about the terminologies changing from look east to act east to east now. But the crux of the point remains that most of the developmental focus on the Northeast for a very long time has been a little misguided, has not fallen in the right place. But I would say that if I have to look into the past few years very carefully, there is again a renewed push, but it remains, for us to see whether these investment commitments actually translate into development on ground for the Northeast. Just to add one point to it, I also feel while the Northeast becomes much more crucial for India at this, at this specific time and context, is giving it much more importance than what we had, say, a few decades back, is also the current geopolitics and geoeconomics. If you see, say, with the SARC reaching a deadlock, with India and Pakistan not being able to reach a consensus there. Apart from that, the European markets are in doldrums currently. The Trump tariffs in the West, given there is so much of geoeconomic uncertainties to the Indian allies that we have had for so many years, given that the diversification of Indian markets towards Southeast Asian markets becomes very, very crucial at this point in time, which is why Northeast comes as a major catalyst that needs to be looked into in the current context as well.
Interesting, because the minister, I just heard him, Jyotiraditya Scindia,
Yeah.
he said the Northeast is actually a strategic asset for India. Your
Yes.
thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, Northeast has always been a strategic asset for India, not only because of its geography, but also the capital endowments of Northeast, like the human capital, the natural capital in the region. But what I'm saying that the strategic asset aspect of the Northeast east becomes much more pronounced, I'd say, in this year or maybe a couple of years, is because of a lot of other external geopolitical reasons, not only in the west that I just spoke about, but also when you look at the northeast, like it's the northeastern borders, also with the current situation in Bangladesh, where we can't no longer look at Bangladesh as an all-weather ally until it stabilizes politically. So, given these aspects, the Northeast becomes a much more stronger asset, I would say, in contemporary times specifically.
Yeah, Soumya, we'll just come back to Bangladesh in a bit. I just want to stay on this theme. So you
Yeah.
said that India historically has looked at the Northeast in fits and bouts, like you rightly said, look east, act east, etc. But in the last decade, there seems to be a more concerted effort, and you said, yes, it is visible, but you have concerns that whether it will translate into actual investments on the ground. But looking historically, have the wrongs been at least mitigated, if not corrected?
Historical wrongs are, as the name suggests, is historical. There is, I would say, there has been an effort to mitigate it, at least the numbers say so. With the large network of highways investments, now we even have semiconductors investment. So, to answer your question very, very precisely, I would say that there is concerted efforts towards mitigating it. But whether we have at all reached mitigation of the historical neglect or not, that is difficult to say, and I wouldn't be 100% sure of it, if we are already there, in the last few years.
Fair enough. So the other aspect of the Northeast, when I was just looking cursorily at the data, they seem to be doing very well or even better than mainland India in particular demographic characteristics like, say, education, in terms of
Gender
literacy,
equality.
right? But not in terms of per
Gender
capita income,
equality, yeah.
right? So, how does the Northeast exploit this head start to carve a niche for itself?
uh, but if we track the northeastern development metrics for the last few years, especially after the agenda 2030, which is what we call the sustainable development goals, came to place, and if we focus on the metrics a little bit more carefully, we tend to look at northeast, I mean any region for that matter, through isolated metrics like per capita income, or say gender equality, or say job market penetration, and these kind of things. But interestingly, for northeast, if you look at the overall metrics in a holistic way, where you look at metrics in terms of human capital aspect, which includes skilling, education, etc. Then you have physical capital aspects, which are infrastructure, etc. Then you have natural capital aspects, which include like forest cover, etc. So if you not only individually go into these matrices, but you also look at these matrices holistically, there has been a large, not only endowment which was already there, there has been a large improvement over the years. Now, with these kind of endowments, you don't really, it's not something that we can equate to an IT sector, which gives moderately medium to short term returns. With such large endowments of assets, to make them more productive, or have monetary benefit outcomes out of it in the long run, you need very strategic investments. So I feel these investments are taking place, and with these metrics which are on the positive side for the northeastern region, so these two complement each other, but the returns we can only see coming out of it, very tangible returns in, say, a longer horizon, when you compare it to very short term investments that we have in many other parts of India. So it is a matter of patience, but I also feel that the metrics being on the higher side is increases the potential of Northeast and is much more useful in the longer horizon.
So, somewhere you mentioned strategic investments being undertaken in the
Yeah.
Northeast. What are these strategic investments? If you can share some examples.
Yeah, I mean, of course, we mostly know about the Kaladan multimodal project, the IMT highway. Although there are a lot of issues that are impeding these very long-term, large investment projects, but that apart, like we have also had so much of private sector being invested in the Northeast with some new progresses in terms of semiconductors as well as say digital connectivity. I recently read a report where 13,000 kilometers of digital fibers are being invested on in the Northeast. So I would say that although we do have like a lot of traditional investment in infrastructure which involves road, railways, the connectivity projects, but I also feel that the last few years and has been very proactive in looking at investments which are not so traditional per se, and have been largely restricted to mainlands for many years, which are some of the examples that I spoke about in terms of say semiconductors, fiber optics, and other stuff like this.
So, is that why the Prime Minister, going back to his speech at the summit, painted a very ambitious picture about the Northeast's future? Highlighting this investments in semiconductors. So, do you think is this why the this combination of creating an infrastructure ecosystem plus the skilling levels will contribute to this, or it'll again be serviced from mainland India?
See, initially it will need to be serviced from mainland India to leverage the scale economies and to bring down the cost. You can't really start from scratch in a region when you are, part of a mainland country which has higher scale economies in that aspect. But that being said, I also feel that investments in semiconductors is very strategic in the sense that for the very first time India is looking into manufacturing of complex goods like semiconductors in that part of the region. And secondly, I mean in this scale, and secondly, why semiconductors becomes much more important for India at this point in time is also to diversify away from China and be less reliant on China for our semiconductor imports. So given that the Northeast remains a very crucial place where we can have our leverage as far as the semiconductor industry is concerned. But as the Prime Minister had pointed out, it is indeed an ambitious project. Not only, I mean, say in terms of semiconductors as well as the broader infrastructure as well. Not only because of Northeast geography, but I'd also feel, given the current geopolitics, the not only the external factors that are playing out in the region, but also as well as the internal civil issues that we also have in the Northeast needs to be taken care of for this kind of infrastructure to find a place in the in a broader if you look at the broader picture that way.
So, I want to just build on these strategic challenges you flagged towards the end. You mentioned civil issues, but we have to tag it with the larger geo-strategic challenges that
Of
India
course.
faces when it addresses the Northeast. You did talk about it in the beginning too. One obvious gorilla in the room is Bangladesh, which has gone south in the last 6 months to 1 year. And like you said, we'll have to wait for it to stabilize. So, in its absence, everybody talks about this Kaladan, the alternative route where India ships from Kolkata to Sitwe and then from there up into the Northeast. How workable is this? Because I've been hearing about the Sitwe project for years.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I mean, very interesting question, Anil. I would slightly, kind of disagree with this point in the sense, especially for analysis that comes out that we can look at Kaladan project or say other projects such as the IMT highway as like a substitute of Bangladesh on what's going on currently, because these projects are very long-term projects. So by the time they are ending and they end and they are functional, the world might have gone just upside down. So I don't think the Bangladesh issue that we face currently has any direct linkages to that projects of those projects. But although I do agree that you need to diversify your connectivity channels because there are issues with our neighbors in the long future. That is the time when we can leverage these projects, not right now. Definitely. So I don't see any parity in that analysis, and I know it's been doing the rounds. But I feel that is a more of a long term vision versus what's happening in Bangladesh currently.
Exactly my point, because I've been hearing about the Sitwe uh, investment by India for years. Similarly, the uh,
Highway.
three country highway, that is India, Thailand, Malaysia, and then further.
Yeah,
But these are all a pie in the sky, right? I mean, because you're
exactly.
going to Myanmar, which is in turmoil. So what
Yeah,
you're saying is that while all this is fine, you can de-risk your access to the northeast, but Bangladesh will continue to be the primary source of connect through for heavy goods.
for the medium term, yes. And even if it is not Bangladesh, it is not something that, I mean, we need to find out other channels. Given the current situation, I don't see IMT and Kaladan as something that we can leverage right away in the next few years. And also, given these are such long term projects, we need to take care of issues that are erupting now and then. Like with the when this project started, there was no idea about how the Myanmar political situation will impact the IMT. Again, the Manipur unrest has impacted some very micro constructions of the IMT highway. So these are the things that you can't really anticipate when you're looking at such long-term projects that runs over decades. I mean, I've been hearing it for so many years now. So keeping that into account, of course, this is a very, very crucial investment for India as far as connectivity to the ASEAN is concerned. Um, but for now, there has to be other ways, be it Bangladesh or otherwise, that we need to substitute India's connectivity problem with.
There is no alternative to Bangladesh at this point of time, right?
Yes, there is no alternative in terms of large shipments, but I'm just thinking that if we have more alternatives on the Indian side, even they could be faster before we can totally utilize the projects that we were discussing.
So finally, Soumya, you travel in the region a lot, and what is your feedback from the ground, particularly from the point of view of the locals are reacting to all these changes? I mean, whenever I have visited Northeast in gaps, I see this very evident change in the terms of roads, infrastructure, but one needs to go beyond that. So, what is your feedback?
I have a very personal feedback in the sense that whenever I am traveling in the Northeast, it comes across as a work in progress. But the work in progress aspect, which are very visible to you, when you're traveling in person, is the infrastructural work in progress. But very unfortunately for the Northeast, given the volatility of the region, uh, the way we utilize capital in the mainlands becomes much slower for the Northeast. It is a challenge, which is not only for the geography, but there's so many other factors which ranges from, say, internal bureaucracy, the border skirmishes, the civil unrest in the region, which kind of makes this work in progress even slower. So which is undeniably, somewhat a reason of frustration for the local populace, but also with a certain level of optimism that given the kind of the scale of investments that are coming into the region in comparison to the size of the population or the geographical region, northeast attributes to India. So there definitely is optimism that, when they are fully functional, they are going to reap heavy benefits for the region. But as I said, undeniably there will be a sense of frustration with these external and internal factors constantly slowing down progress in the region over so many years.
The mainstreaming of the Northeast, as Soumya flagged, is a work in progress. More so today than ever. Exactly why this cause for optimism. In fact, the Northeast is steadily becoming the bridge between India and Southeast Asia. As foreign and domestic policy converge in the region, the story of the Northeast may well define India's future rise. As they say, watch this space. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to StratNewsGlobal.Tech on YouTube. Hit the bell icon so that you don't miss any updates. And please to share your thoughts, ideas and suggestions with us. I'm available on Twitter at Capital Calculus. I'll be back next week with another episode. Till then, stay safe.